Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome to today's Africa. Uh, it's another day. This is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. We realize that life is so daily. Sometimes you're held back, and sometimes you are on time, and sometimes you're not on time. Someone has said that life is really 99% of how you react to things that happen around you. And I think there's a lot of truth in that because sometimes there are things that just don't go your way, but things are happening. So, how you respond to that will determine how you will be able to navigate your next steps and so forth. Anyway, I'm saying this because we are starting really, really late. We had serious technical difficulties, but hey, we are here. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is your host, Dr. FM, on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio studio, which is stationed in Toronto, in Canada. And we go live every Saturday at 11 Eastern Standard Time to over 100 different countries around the world. So thank you for joining us. I know that, you know what, you could have chosen to be somewhere else, but you have chosen to be with us today. So we're very, very grateful. And if you haven't logged in and subscribed, please do that into our channel so that you can also share this with people within your networks. Someone has said that we need to look at our networks as part of our tribe. And I think I kind of like that concept of our networks being part of our tribe. So, again, we're delighted. Today, we have a special guest. We have a special guest, and we are going to be talking about women in leadership. Now, this is a hot topic. Hot because as Africans, we know that women have always been in leadership. But in today's culture, we understand that there are some cultures that do not seem to regard women from that perspective. And so you end up with discussions and dialogues and conflicts over, should this position be given to a woman? Should this position be given to a man? Which, in my view, I don't think it should be like that. Well, what am I saying? I'm saying that there are skills that are given to men and skills given to women, gifts, and oftentimes the very things anyone can do. But anyway, we have a special guest today who is going to help us navigate some of this, and then we will be able to continue our dialogue, discover, and obviously decide. So, again, welcome for tuning in. We're delighted you're here with us. So, today we have a guest. Her name is Betty Odak. She is someone who is in the USA, originally from Kenya. I'm giving all this away now. And she came to the US as a student way back a few years ago. She got herself a BA in psychology from Biola University, and then she went to Hope International University and graduated in 2003 with an MA in psychology. She got her license as a mental health therapist, but this is an African sister who is a leader, not just a leader in her community, but also a leader in Africa. She has participated in so many programs, so many activities, so many professional contexts where her skills have been utilized. And so today, like I told you, this is a loaded topic. Not only are we going to be talking about leadership, but we're also going to be talking about some of the challenges women face, not just in leadership, but in real life. And as someone raised by a single mother myself, I am aware of some of those challenges. So we're going to be talking about this. So Betty, we are so delighted. Karibu Dada, asante sana for making time to be with us. We're delighted you have joined us. And so we had to wake her up quite early today. She is all the way on the other side, on the eastern on the western part of the US. So it's quite early for her. But Betty, thank you so much for making time to be with us today. So tell us, who is Betty? I know I just touched a few things here, but what would you like us to know about Betty before we enter into our conversation today?
I'm really glad to be here. And again, my apologies for not being on time. There were some technical issues. So one, my name is Betty. I remember Dr. Mpindu said that he was raised by a single mom. I was raised by a single mom as well. And that just makes me see how my mother, in her own mind, believed that education is the best that you can do for any one of us. You know, she moved from a very long distance to go to where she was married to go to school, because there was only one school, I don't know in how many districts. So she was able to go to school and looked at education as the best anybody can do. She used to have a song that says, when a girl is educated, it's like a whole village is educated. I mean, I'm not sure how that is true, but that's what she used to say. And there's a song about that. I don't remember the lyrics, but you know, she used to say that. Again, my name is Betty Odak. Been in the US is going to be 30 years this September. Oh no, I can't believe I've been here half of my life. So I've been here this long, but I also know that there's a lot that is expected from people in leadership, and especially women. You know, people expect them to do twice as much or 3 times more than men do. So as we go along, I will share some of those things, and that's it.
Definitely, we're delighted to have you in the studio with us today. You know what? I need to qualify this and actually say to our viewers and our listeners, I'm very, very biased about Sister Betty. That's how I used to refer to her, and I still refer her as Sister Betty,
Yeah.
Dada Betty kwa
Yes.
Kiswahili.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to someone, and I said, you know, I have known her for many, many years when I went to Daystar University many years ago. And when I hear you saying you've been in the US for 30 years, it just makes me feel ancient, you know. But life is so daily, things are moving on, and we're really delighted. Now, you as an African coming to the US to do your studies here, would you just take briefly, would you just take a moment briefly to explain to our viewers and our listeners what were some of the challenges you faced? Because we do still have other brothers and sisters who are really waiting, actively waiting to find opportunities to come to North America or to Europe for studies. And of course, we do have colleges and universities in Africa, but sometimes, you know, opportunities come up. So just give us a brief synopsis of some of the challenges and some of the realities of coming as a foreign student.
The first one I would say is growing up, I never witnessed or saw anyone go see a therapist. It's like if you have a problem, sort it out. If there's a big problem, then they call the community, or they call the brothers and the sisters and the uncles, the elders, so that they can sort it out. But these are people who knows the person. So sorting out some of the issues may not have been adequate. So in my mind, I mean, I went through some challenges early in my marriage. So I realized that there has to be some ways that there is a professional who can help, someone who is trained to be able to guide people on the right direction. So I talked to 2 friends of mine, and I said, I would like to go to the US to study psychology. And they thought, you must be out of your mind. But I wasn't. I was really serious about it. And when I went to the US Embassy, I told them I would like to come back and help our people. Unfortunately, I haven't gone back full time, but I'm hoping to. So the challenges that are there is also leaving the family behind. Who will take care of, like if somebody has children, or you have farms, or you have things that needs to be taken care of, who will take care of that? For a single person, it's easy. They can just pack their bag and come. But there are also challenges getting visas from the US Embassy, and especially now. So I'm hoping that, whatever it is, people can still get opportunity of going outside to study. The challenges that I have while in the US mostly was cultural. I remember growing up in Nairobi, there are Kenya buses. If someone is inside the bus and someone is outside, they would like to shake hands. They would literally stretch their hand through the bus to shake this hand of the person outside. That's how you feel that somebody is real. So when I came to the US, I would stretch my hand to shake hands, and people would ask, "What are you giving me?" And I thought, "Oh, no, I wasn't giving you anything. I was just trying to shake your hand." So that was a cultural difference that kind of, I don't know, I had to let it go, but I still do it. The challenges also that are here is, for Kenya, it's easier because it speaks English. So that's less than, let's say, somebody from Tanzania, where they speak Swahili as the national language. When they come to the US, they put in categories like with people with China. So they have to do English 101 so that they can learn English, and that takes even longer. So that would be one of the challenges that I would say.
You know what? Thank you very much for sharing this. And I also feel that I think sometimes we need to have groups or pockets of contexts where people planning to go somewhere can actually have other people they can talk to before they leave, especially in
Exactly.
this day and age where there is so much information. We need to be creative in sharing that. Now, for you touched on something that I really think I'm actually saying to myself, you know what? I'm glad we have you today, but we will bring you back because we're going to be talking about this therapist perspective you just brought in, because you are a therapist.
Yes,
Now, you're dealing with people who may not necessarily know you, but you are qualified in your area, you know?
exactly.
And then back home, we're dealing with people who know you, but they may not necessarily have the skills.
Yes,
Because sometimes instead of really helping you in your marriage, they have good intentions, but they're actually making things difficult. But they can
exactly.
also be very helpful because there's a relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just looking at this and just excited that we're going to be touching on some of these. Now, so fast forward, you end up with a master's degree and you're working as a mental health therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and then you end up having your own practice. Now I know you've had this practice for a while now,
Yes.
and what do you see similarities? Are you working with a diverse group of people? How would that work within an African environment, or within an American environment, or within just the global village? What are some of the things you see in your practice that would relate to the realities of Africa, or the realities of people of African descent?
I'm glad that you asked that, because as you are talking, I was calculating my clients, and I'm realizing that out of 20, I only have two who are Africans, two who are African Americans, and one from Ghana. The rest are Latinos, whites, all the others. So my observation over the years is that the mentality of Africans seeing a therapist, it's considered, so to speak, like a taboo. Like, you have to be mentally ill, you have to be psycho, you have to have some serious mental issues to go see a therapist, which is very unfortunate, because seeing a therapist many times is just to guide a person into the right path. You don't have to, and I don't prescribe medication. So it's more like you need someone who is trained, professional to guide. Because most of the things that come in our lives, especially trauma, disappointments, they don't disappear on their own. Some can linger for a very, very long time. But when you have a professional guiding you, giving you tools, what to do, how to go about it, then you don't have to carry that trauma for life. Uh,
You know what? You are touching on something that is really, really profound here, because in our culture, going to a specialist has a stigma attached to it.
exactly.
And also the words that, you're going to see a therapist, you have a problem. And sometimes we don't just see that as I have a problem, but I am the problem.
Exactly.
So if I am the problem, I'll stay away and mind my own business. I don't have to bother anybody. How do you think we can overcome that? So
I
that
think
when I'm just thinking, so that when I have issues that I need to wrestle with, this is about seeking guidance. This is about being guided, not being told what to do, and not being commanded to do something, but someone knows, or someone has studied how our brains function, how our emotions function. So I need help, so I will go to seek help from that perspective, and actually know that I'm getting something that I really need. I mean, this is a great topic. And again, those of you who just joined us, this is your host, Dr. FM, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the number one online radio program and station that caters to not just people from Africa or people of African descent, but in this global village. This is a unique opportunity, and we are right here on today's Africa with Betty, who is a mental health therapist, someone who has a practice where she is working with all different kinds of cultures. But she's telling us that because of cultural implications, some of our own people in Africa or from Africa, they look at this as something that has a stigma attached to it. So instead of getting help, we don't go see a specialist. So I just asked our sister here, Betty, you are the specialist, you are the therapist. How do we overcome this mountain?
I think it's going to take a while, the challenges that are there. One of the opening statements I make when people come in, this is what I say. When we have physical pain, like if I have leg pain, chest pain, we go see a doctor right away. But that's not so much with emotional pain, mental pain. We don't. We wait, hope, pray that things will change, people will change, or circumstances will change. 9 out of 10, they don't until we seek help. I remember one couple, they were Blacks or African Americans, and the husband said, "What's someone going to tell me about my marriage that I already don't know?" And the wife said, "Well, if you knew, then we should not have been here, but we are here now."
That's a good one. I like that.
So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm thinking it's more of education, letting people know that seeing a therapist is not, it's not something that's bad. It's not a stigma. It's not a taboo. It's not that you are psychotic. It's you need help. And
Now, I'm sorry for interrupting here, but do you
that's okay.
think that you being female would have been viewed or are viewed differently in your role, or you don't see that as an issue? Um, Not necessarily an issue, but as a challenge. Do you think that people relate to you differently as a mental health therapist, as a counselor, as a someone dealing with real issues of life, do you think people treat you differently because you are a woman, or in your field you don't necessarily see that?
Um, no, I don't. The only thing I've noticed is different religion. Like, the Muslims, the Hindus. I remember, of course, all these people are confidential. I remember a Hindu guy came in and started talking about how Christianity has made people slaves. Like Christianity, they used it to take advantage of everyone. And I looked at him and I said, Sir, you are not paying me to talk about religion. You are paying me to talk about the issues that are affecting you at home. So maybe we can put the religion aside and talk about the issue. And we never talked about religion thereafter. So what I've seen is sometimes when people come, well, they have biases. One, you're a woman, one, you are from Africa, you have an accent. But when people come, I look at them just as human beings, someone
Mm,
who needs help, someone who needs guidance. So their perception of who I am doesn't hinder me. I remember one gentleman said something, and I said, look, if I say a word in English which you don't understand, you don't get it properly, I'm not offended. Just ask me and I will use a substitute word. And that was it. You know, I still feel that our people need help, but they're afraid. They're afraid that someone would put them in a category of not being able to take care of their own issues. But
mm,
this one, I'm also looking back, even at home in Kenya. I had cousins who really had rough marriages, but they never left their spouses. They, for some reason, it's like if you've been married, it's through death do us part. Even if a leg is broken, a hand is broken, until death do us part. But that also gives power to the men because they can do anything to their wives. And then when you look at it, it's also going to be generational. Because if a husband treats the wife poorly, the sons will also treat their future wives poorly. The daughters will also look for someone who is like their dad. So that means the generation of mistreatment does not end. Someone has to say enough is enough.
mm. You know what? You have just touched the live wire right there. You're saying there's a sense of commitment in terms of the relationships in marriage.
Yes.
You know, we get married to stay together until death separates us.
Mhm.
But then you're saying sometimes within that context, some men then take advantage and abuse and mistreat the wife because she's
Yes.
not going anywhere, because we're going to be together
Exactly.
until death separates us. So she ends
Yes,
up in a very abusive relationship,
exactly.
being mistreated. Things are happening. And let's face it, it's not just the men, there are also women caught up in this as well,
Yes,
who would end up causing hurt, emotional, mental, social, spiritual issues that will affect their spouse.
exactly.
But for the most part, because of interactions with other cultures, the women tend to be more on the receiving end of this. Now, oh my sister, this is big. Now, what do you see? What is causing all this? I know it could very well be, yeah, we're committed to being together, but what are some of the factors contributing to this um, decrease in cultural values where we respect our women, we value them, we honor them, they are equal partners, be it in ministry, be it in, in the church, be it in the workplace, be it in the home. Yes, we have different roles. Someone is a wife and someone is a husband, but we're working together as a team. So what is causing these changes in our culture?
Okay, I'll start with the response I've had from here in the US. When I asked the women why they are staying in the abusive relationship, they have two answers. The first one is finances. They feel that without the husband, they will not be able to survive. The second one is that if they have children, they don't want the children to be in a single home. And my response to them that those two are lame excuses. Okay, listeners who are listening, those are really lame excuses. That you stay in abusive relationship because of finances and because of the children. This is what happens when spouses stay in abusive relationship because of finances. The children are affected 3 times more because now they look at the father that he's the provider, but he's also the controller. Looking at the mother that she's the provider, but she's the weak link. So she can't do anything. So you're telling your children that you don't have any say growing up. So you are raising even more broken children than your broken marriage. So I do say that it is best for parents to, and if someone is listening, I do not advocate divorce, but sometimes it's better for children to live with either parent where they are happy than live with both parents where they see this conflict, the fighting, the calling of names every single day. The children will be healthier living with both parents separately so they can have visitations. I mean, I have kids who they say dad's place and mom's place, but they are well-rounded children. And the parents were able to do that well in advance. So for the women, I have a book that I've used. I don't know if anybody can see it. It says, Abuse of Men by Women. I know you asked me that, but there are also men who are being abused by their women. Men are very scared to come out and say it. I've only had 2 in my last 14 years of practice. Only 2. Because they feel as a man, how can they say that they are being abused by their wives? They just can't. But it does happen. So that's more complicated and more challenging, especially when the kids are a little bit older. They're even more confused because now they don't know who is the head of the house or the household. Is it mom or dad, or is it dad or mom, or is it both? Look, being in leadership has challenges, but I also know that being a leader is also having to be a good example, not just outside, but mostly at home, because home is where the heart is. If parents treat each other fairly with respect, it translates to the children. They go out, they do the same thing. But that's not so much in our society today, especially in African society. I go to Kenya every year and I have relatives and they share. And they said, well, I don't think I can leave my husband. I say, why not? Oh, then I'll be a disgrace to my family. So people are more concerned about what society would think of them than their own welfare.
Mm, mm, mm. Oh wow. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. I mean, you are opening some can of worms here, and rightly so, because these are topics we don't generally talk about. I mean, you just mentioned this book, Abuse of Men by Women, and you're saying you haven't had many men
No.
come and talk to you. But you know what? I'm encouraged to know that those two actually came to talk to you about that, because if we recognize that there are things happening in our own lives, and there's someone who is skilled
Mhm.
to coach, to help us navigate, to guide, bring different perspectives, I think just the notion of being humble enough to ask for help is a noble
Absolutely.
reality in life. And I think we need to encourage a lot of our men to do that. It seems we might have to start much earlier when they are younger, to actually know that it's okay to tell me, because most of the time you would remember some of these contexts, I would imagine, even though you are from East Africa.
Mm.
There are opportunities where boys are told, okay, go figure this one out. Okay, boys don't cry, or you
Exactly.
go sort it out, go outside, don't talk to me about that, because we expect them to be macho and to have answers, and yet they may not have those answers.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think and I think some of us, then, having grown up like that, we end up coming to therapists like you because our emotions have been hurt. you know
Exactly.
our
Yeah.
minds have not been developed to the point of actually knowing it's okay to ask for help.
Mhm.
So this is really, really wonderful, and quite quite a mind opener to have this dialogue with you. um Now, let's go back to this notion of women in leadership. What do you see as solutions in terms of? Now, I'm not saying we need to move men out of the way, but how do we increase the value of women being seen as leaders, or being accepted as leaders? Because they are. Well, listen, whether we like it or not, women are leaders.
That's true.
And we have a lot of women in positions of leadership, be it in our homes, be it in society. I mean, I know some of our African countries now, they have vice presidents, or even Tanzania, they have a president who is female, which is a powerful statement. She didn't get that because she's female. She got that because she was qualified you
Exactly.
know
Exactly.
and oftentimes we are like, okay, what do we need to do? Is it because they're not qualified? Is it because we're not creating opportunities for them to be in positions of leadership? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking that it starts from home. How a lady was brought up. What did the dad or the parents tell her? Because what the parents instill in their children will manifest much later in life. If a
Mm,
kid grows up, let's say a female, um, the parents are always giving responsibility to the sons, and the daughters are just put on the side. In their mind, they start thinking that they are not good enough or they are not competent enough. But when parents tell their children that you have as much opportunity as your brother, they start thinking that way at a very young age. So
yeah.
this needs to start very early. And listeners who are not married or have young children, if you have daughters, let them know that they are the future leaders of tomorrow. Tell them, encourage them, give them responsibilities. When they grow up, they will say, you know what, my parents or my mom or my dad told me that I can be a leader, and no one can tell me different. So it starts from home.
Mm. Yes, you're absolutely right. It starts from home, but something is happening in the home front.
Yes. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that sometimes we end up with these squabbles or conflicts, environments where the home situation is not healthy.
Mhm.
Now, just because you're raised by a single parent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end up bad. And just
No.
because you're raised by both parents, it doesn't mean you're going to end up good.
No.
Life is so daily. There are people who have been raised in beautiful homes, healthy environments, and they ended up somewhere else. And there are people who have been raised in environments where you did not expect anything from them, and they
Exactly.
became something else that has benefited the world and their community around them. Now, I know at some point when we bring you back, I really want us to go into some of the aspects of the abuse that you touched on. Um, Experientially, my mom left my dad when I was barely 3 years old because from the old school, he was verbally, emotionally, and physically abusive. He would beat up my dad, and I'm not ashamed to mention this because that to me has to stop. You
Yeah.
cannot have two adults in a relationship, a romantic relationship, be it marriage or just conjugal, just living together, just shacking together, where another adult is treated as a child.
Exactly.
That is not acceptable. And I think as Africans and people of African descent, whether in diaspora or at home, uh, we need to raise the level of value for a human being. It doesn't matter what gender they are.
Exactly.
And then the sense of responsibility you're sharing in terms of, listen, tell your kids, male, female, you are going to be the leader. Yes, I know that we also need to say, well, our young people, especially the youth, they are leaders not just of tomorrow, but even today, but it starts now,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
So when you look at these notions of preparing leaders of tomorrow within our homes, I know you spoke directly to our viewers and our listeners, and I like that. You're simply saying, listen, let's do this, let's lay the foundation. Now, for example, you said you go back to Kenya quite regularly. You save yearly. That's beautiful. Next time, if you have an extra cash, just bring me along, buy me a ticket, and I'll fly with you. And then
Absolutely.
I can see my brothers and sisters over there. What
Exactly.
do you see? What do you see in the cities in terms of being intentional about preparing girls to be leaders? What are you seeing in Kenya? What are you seeing in Kilimani and Dagoret and Mathare Valley and Kibera? What's happening there?
You know, when you say that, I'm remembering that ladies in Kenya have, so to speak, grown horns. They don't like being talked down to the way when I was growing up. They are able to speak up, which I like, not disrespectfully, but they are able to respond. Um, if a guy says something, they're not just going to listen and take and say, yes, sir. No, they said, no, you are not right in this way, which I'm admiring about the young people today, that they feel that they have a voice, they can talk, they can speak up, and the person they're talking to would be able to listen. If that trend continues, then we are going to have a balanced leadership, not just men. Sorry, guys. Um, Most men are not usually good leaders. Women are really good leaders because they don't just lead with the head, they also lead with their heart. So the two are put together. Men usually just think the heart, like, oh, needs to be done, one, two, three. But women are able to look at what are the consequences, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, who is going to benefit, who will, you know, feel hurt about this. So they're able to make really good decisions. But when you are able to give a chance to both men and women, that's where we have a level headed society. And we need
Mm,
that. We need that abroad, we need that at home. Because what's up? what's affecting the Kenyan young people also affects me. I may not be there in person, but when I get phone calls or I get emails or texts or what's going on, I'm affected. Not to the same degree as if I was there, but the effect is still there. So if people are given opportunities to share ideas and talk, both male and female, I'm hoping that we can have a better world tomorrow.
Mm. You're absolutely right. And again, we're just delighted. This is today's Africa, live on YouTube and Facebook, live stream. We are delighted that we have this topic. We were talking about women in leadership, and we're delighted to have Betty Odak Richards, who is with us talking about women in leadership. And this topic is a live wire, because oftentimes it's looked at very negatively. I was just thinking about a country like Rwanda, where they have over 50% of women who are now in leadership positions as far as the government is concerned.
Yeah.
Now, we celebrate that, but I'm also thinking that should be natural. Not that every country should have 50%, but just creating opportunities for males and females to lead, to guide in corporations, and be it ministry, be it government projects, and government departments. Now, something is happening. I wonder whether it is something to do with the education system or the way we grow up, and also the opportunities we create in society to have interactions between boys and girls growing up. Like, let me jump out here and dive into the deep end. Growing up as a little boy, we actually thought it was funny to poke a girl, and she's like, "No, don't do that." She said, "No, don't, no, don't." We we actually thought that it was okay, and we would have fun doing that. We were not listening to the point. No, don't do that, because she's giggling and giving the impression that, yeah, this is what is happening, but I don't like this.
Yeah.
So having boys growing up with boundaries, knowing that this is not acceptable, I think it just helps society uh, a lot in terms of, um, you know, life is lived within a community, and we need to work together.
Mhm.
And accepting no will also, I mean, accepting no from a girl will also help our society to have boys that respect women.
Exactly.
So where do we start? How do we do that?
As you're talking, I wrote a couple of things, and this is typically sometimes how men think that one, they have power, they have authority, and also intimidation.
Mm,
And when you look at it, even as young boys, they they think it is just fun to do certain things. But because no one is telling them you are wrong or that's not appropriate, they grow up thinking that, oh, I have authority, I have power, and I can intimidate the opposite sex. There's nothing wrong with that. As they grow into young adults, they continue doing it. So they get into older adults, they get married, they still feel, well, I am the one in charge. I have power. I have authority. I can intimidate.
mm,
What will she do? So teaching our young people both male and female, to respect each other is really critical now than ever. And these are not some of the things that are taught in school. There's no subject that would be, okay, let's teach our young boys, how to respect women. We don't have that. But that's where the parents come in, or the grandparents, or someone in authority. What can they do, or what can they do to teach these young people some basic manners? Charity begins at home. So that's where it's supposed to start. If they don't get it from home, trust me, they're not going to get it outside. They won't. So as parents and as leaders, we have a lot of responsibility to our young people. What we do, what we say, how we do things, how we say things, those are the impacts that they're going to grow up with. And this is the time. Especially when you think of today's leaders. I mean, today's kids are going to be tomorrow's leaders.
This is very, very encouraging to hear you say that, and I also like the fact that you are putting focus on the home, the family, and saying this is where everything starts.
Yeah.
And I am just wondering, you as a therapist, someone who counsels, marital issues, mental issues, and all these, how much intentionality is there among us as Africans, if I may be blunt here, as Africans or people of African descent, to make the home a priority? Those of us who have been blessed with children, to actually invest in our children so much that we are preparing them for the next generation. Now, I know earlier you talked about intergenerational issues, things that children have observed that have not been done right, but that's all the children see. And so they think this is the way to treat mom, or this is the way to treat women. And then it goes into the next generation, which should not be. That's not acceptable. However, as Africans, survival is something that is always at our doorstep. Oftentimes we end up hustling if you are at home. If you are in the diaspora, you are working so many hours, and the children end up with babysitters, or you end up, leaving them on their own. So most of their time is really before the box, before the TV, and so they end up being influenced by all this. And I realize that our topic today is really, really loaded, and we don't have enough time to delve into all this. But you know what? I'm glad we got started, and we'll definitely have you back. And of course, this is Today's Africa with your host, Dr. FM here. An opportunity for us to talk about things pertaining to Africa, socially and politically, and things that are happening among us, things that we need to talk about so that we become better at resolving some of the issues that are affecting us, but also knowing that it's okay to ask for help.
Exactly.
Even from someone you don't know, if they have a good heart or they're a specialist in a certain way, or specialized in a particular area, it's okay to ask for help, because we need help beyond ourselves, and we need to overcome these biases and stigmas that no, there's no business. What, like you made reference to the gentleman who says, what can you tell me about marriage which I don't know? And I'm glad the wife took leadership.
Yeah.
She took leadership, and she's like, honey, If we
We're
were
here.
okay, we wouldn't be here. We're here because we have issues, and that's why we're talking to someone. And I'm like, yes, that
Yes,
is lead, that is leadership, in
exactly.
the true sense of the word. So as we wind down, I know we started late, but this is uh, you know our time is slipping away. What would be some of your parting words as we think about women in leadership? Be it children, be it youth, or be it those who are grown up. And I know that I am throwing this at you towards the end here, but I want you to think in terms of children. I want you to think in terms of youth and grown up women. When we talk about women in leadership, what would be some of the things that you would like to leave our listeners with? And I'll give you a few minutes, a few seconds to reflect on that. And our listeners and our viewers, we're so glad you've been with us today on today's Africa, talking to Betty Odak, who is a mental health therapist, someone who has worked with so many people in Africa and in North America, uh, guiding people to be healthier, to be able to deal with the issues of life from positive perspectives. And so again, we're delighted that you've been with us. And so, Sister Betty, what comes to mind in terms of children, youth, grown-ups? Remember, we will bring you back. So,
Yes,
and that's not a threat; it's a promise.
I can promise.
So we will bring you back so that we can uncover again, just unfold some of these again. But what could be some of your parting words as we think about women in leadership, children, youth, and grown-up women?
Okay, I'll start with grown up. You know how they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? You can. And I'm not calling the older women dogs, but you can teach new tricks. And by new tricks, I mean learning or
Mm,
relearning some or acquiring some different behaviors, characters. We all can do that. And for young people, uh, if your parents said things that probably were not appropriate or you didn't like, you can drop those. Pick the things that you know, because deep within us, we know right from wrong. All of us, Christians or non Christians, we know right from wrong. But many times we pick the wrong, even when we know there's a right to be done.
mm,
And for the children, not disrespecting your parents, but when they say something that you know it's not right, let them know in a respectful way. You can say, hey, mom, you said I'm stupid. Do you really believe I'm stupid? Or have I taken that from dad? That would engage a dialogue because mom would think, oh, is the dad stupid? Or is it me stupid? Or is it the child? So that would just have a dialogue. And for the kids, find a time when your parents are not in a bad mood. Make sure that they're in a good mood so that the dialogue can continue. But otherwise, I've really had a good time and I hope I'll come back and then maybe share some of the things. That,
oh, this is wonderful. You have helped us bring to the forefront things that we don't generally talk about, and this is why today's Africa is here to bring people like yourself as guests to help us uncover some of these so that we can become better in what we do. I liked what you
right.
said. You said, "No, I'm not calling these older women dogs, but I'm just saying you can learn new tricks." I liked that sense of humor there. It's never too late for us to learn.
No,
You're talking about character and even skills to go back to school. I mean, You got your master's degree at a later age, but
Exactly.
age was not a factor. You're like, listen, I need this skill, and you were able to do that. And then I liked what you said about the youth, and just say, pick up the good things. Sometimes there are so many uh, bad things in society, and even within our families.
Yeah.
But pick up the good, and you know do the best with the good things that you pick up even in your own home. I really liked the emphasis you put on the home, just to say, you know what, let's focus on the home and just make sure that we do the right things here. And then of course on the children, you talked about, being respectful if things are said to you. And let's face it, parents sometimes, because of stress,
Yeah.
we allow stress to contribute to our not being nice, and so we might say things that are not appropriate to our children. But you're saying, children, be mindful when the parents are in a good mood, bring up some of these conversations. Hey,
Exactly.
you called me that the other day. Do you really believe that I am that? Have
Exactly.
conversations, and I think that creates a very wonderful environment. Oh, Sister Betty Odak, thank you so much for being with us
You're
today,
welcome.
and
You're
and to
welcome.
our listeners, thank you for making time to be with us, and we're just delighted that we've had this conversation with our sister, who is a mental health therapist, a counselor, working with so many families. And I just hope that more and more of our own people as Africans will see the need to connect with therapists. Now, that doesn't mean you are the problem, but if there are challenges, you can be enlightened by speaking to therapists who really are trained to understand how certain behaviors and different mindsets can actually be instilled within each one of us, so that we can become better. And so I'm just so delighted. This has been your host, Dr. FM, on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio on today's Africa. And we were talking about women in leadership and saying, listen, women are leaders. And our sister has highlighted this and beautifully done a very, very good job in just saying, this is not a contest. This is not about who is a better leader, but we need to acknowledge the fact that women are leaders, and we do have women in positions of leadership, and we need to honor that. And it'll make our societies and our families even better. So again, thank you for being with us, our listeners. We go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with your host here, Dr. FM. And we're delighted that Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the number one online radio that is online 24/7, creates this opportunity for us to have these conversations. And so, again, thank you for being with us. As they say in Kiswahili, asante sana. Thank you. And again, I just want you to know that coming up at 1 o'clock is the Caribbean flavor, and you don't want to miss that. Mr. Marcus and Miss Gen 2 Blue, they will be there. And so please switch into that momentarily, and you will continue to enjoy Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And again, thank you for being with us. Adios. We'll connect next week again. Thank you.